All right, I'm going to call our meeting to order. Good morning and welcome to our commission meeting for January 16th. I'll note for the record that we have a full quorum of commissioners here. And just recommend before we get started, if you have a cell phone, silence it, avoid embarrassment. I'm going to ask you to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we're going to move into our routine business. I'm going to look for a motion to approve our agenda.
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Our agenda is approved. We'll move on to our consent agenda. Now, if there's anybody here from the public that would like to comment on the consent agenda, now would be the time to do that. All right. Any commissioner want to remove anything from the consent agenda? All right, so I will look for a motion to approve our consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Kipley, second by Bleinberg. Before I do the roll call vote, I want to recognize a couple of individuals that are on our consent agenda. First, and they're both with the Highway Department. So first, Jenna Gerard. Jenna, if you'd stand. Jenna just passed her PE, or Professional Engineering designation, which I know is not an easy thing to do, and we want to recognize her for two reasons. She's, with the passing, it added responsibility on the county level and a little bit of a pay bump, so congratulations to you. That's a great accomplishment, so congratulations. And while Jenna's just getting her career started, Dan Grapevine is here. Dan, congratulations to you. 44 years with the county. Friday will be your last day, and a well-earned and hard worked for retirement. So 44 years ago, I was starting my junior year of high school. So congratulations on 44 years to Minnehaha County, and thank you for your service, sir.
Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to approve our consent agenda. Call the roll, please.
Kipley.
Aye.
Bender.
Aye.
Bleinberg.
Aye.
Benega.
Aye.
Karski.
Aye, motion carries. We will now move into our regular business. Our first item on our regular agenda is a public hearing to consider a medical cannabis license for Shangri-La, South Dakota. Kim is in charge of licensing, so Kim.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kim Christensen with the Auditor's Office. We have received an application for the medical cannabis dispensary license from Shangri-La, South Dakota. This would allow for the sale of medical cannabis at their establishment located in Minnehaha County. The application has been sent to the state's attorney and planning office for review per the ordinance. Just as a reminder, this property does have a conditional use permit. Conditional use permit 2204 will expire on February 28th of this year, which would be 2 years after the issuance. The application fee for the medical cannabis license is $100,000, which is refundable if the license is not approved, and per the ordinance, this would need to be operational within 60 days of issuance.
Questions for Kim? All righty. Now is the time for public comment. If you are here to speak, make sure you signed in so we have record of for the meeting minutes, et cetera.
Hi, Mr. Commissioner, I did sign in.
The public, I believe this is a hearing. It's a public hearing on it.
Okay, so you are correct, a public hearing. So we now take the proponents, those that are in favor of the licensing, so.
Okay, Mr. Commissioner, my name is TJ Cameron, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Shangri-La. I am gonna request, if this is something within my ability, that we delay this to the next meeting, and the reason I'm requesting this is we experienced a fire at our main facility in the middle of December, and it was a complete loss. So currently, we are experiencing some challenges regarding our ability and want to make sure that we can accurately communicate our intent to operate. As we know, the last licensee waited a long time, and we don't want that to happen or be us. Luckily, we were the backup applicant in the previous lottery. So as Kim mentioned, the conditional use permit is at its 2-year mark. So we may have to address if we could extend that to the next meeting as well. But for us to be able to accurately commit to the commission on our intent, we're asking this is be delayed to the next meeting while we sort out our fire. It was a total loss. It was at our Brandon facility, which was our one operating facility. We had a fire, destroyed the entire cultivation center and all product in our possession, and we're working diligently with the state. That's actually why I walked into the last moment. I was speaking with them on the phone this morning. So if it's possible for me to request it to be moved to the next meeting, I'd like to do that. If that's not an option, I'll speak on behalf of the company.
Okay. Any other proponents at this time? Okay, I don't see anybody that would be an opponent, but any opponents to this public hearing? All right, so we have a request from the applicant to delay consideration. And I know statutorily we have requirements that we approve licensure within a certain amount of time after application. How close are we to that?
You're right at the 60 days.
So we're at the 60 days. So, options.
Our request with that in mind is with our consent. Would that allow you any liberty to do so? Delay beyond the 60.
Okay. I'm gonna look to our legal counsel if he's ready to address this.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Eric Bogue, State's Attorney's Office. Under Section 3C of our own ordinance, 60-21, I believe is the number, the 60-day period is told pending any applicant's appeal or application for a conditional use permit. It's my understanding from the applicant's testimony this morning that he's intending to apply or request an extension of his conditional use permit from Planning and Zoning Commission. With that in mind, in his own acquiescence on the extension, I think it's the 60-day period under our ordinance would be told for a reasonable period of time to allow that to occur.
So permitted is what you're saying?
Right.
Okay. Thank you for that, sir. I'm gonna go back to one more. I'm gonna ask another question, then I'll come back to you, okay? Scott, the conditional use permit, can that be extended?
Thank you.
Kim is correct. I have worked with the state's attorney and the auditors, Scott Anderson, planning director, sorry. There is no mechanism for an extension. The permit expires on the 28th of February if it's not active, if the use isn't active. The applicant has, he has the option to come back in and reapply for a new conditional use permit.
Okay. So to make it active, does the business have to be opened? What constitutes active?
Active means the business is operational, that the use is occurring.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Yes, sir.
I did want to mention we would be willing to reapply for the conditional use permit if allowed, so long as it doesn't impact our ability to move forward with a potential approval at the next meeting, if you allow us this time.
All righty. Commissioners, Commissioner Bender.
I have a question for Scott. Scott, could you just give us, remind me of the time frame for if he applies for a new conditional use permit on this property? Could that all be accomplished by our next meeting? How long would that, the actual application in process?
Good question. Our next planning commission meeting is next Monday night, and the deadline for that is passed. So the next meeting would be the fourth Monday in February. I'm not sure exactly what that date would be. The application date to get on that meeting is the last Friday in January. So potentially it would go to the joint meeting of the planning commissions, because this is in the joint area of City of Sioux Falls and the county. And that would go to the February, the fourth Monday in February. And then if there were an appeal by any neighbors, if the applicant didn't like the conditions that were imposed, whatever, there's an appeal process, and then that would go to the joint county commission, city council, which would be in March, at your March meeting, which I think is the third or fourth. I think it's the fourth Tuesday as well.
So deferring this until next meeting wouldn't really accomplish much because we wouldn't
No.
know anything next week that we don't know today.
No, no, you are correct. The next meeting is, the next meeting that the applicant could get on to have any kind of consideration would be that meeting in February, the fourth Monday.
Thank you.
And,
Commissioner Kipley.
and Mr. Chair, just kind of brings up, do we have kind of a chicken and egg situation? Is it valid to issue a license if we don't know for certain that there's going to be a valid use of that license under a conditional use permit? Do we need to, if we can validly toll this, do we delay this all the way till March? And
We would agree to that.
I'm seeing a nodding head from the applicant that time would actually be beneficial to him, but I would just rather have our ducks in a row, that we have a proper license and a proper conditional use permit, and we're all rowing the boat in the same direction, and we don't end up with unnecessary delays that we experienced last time, that we have assurances on both sides of the licensure and the planning and zoning that both are approving before we go forward, if that makes sense. Mr. Chair.
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner Kipley. We agree with you. We don't want to bring the county through the same situation as last time.
How long does, once a license is approved, does the applicant have to begin operations?
Kim Christensen with the auditor's office, again, 60 days.
So we're up a 60-day window there too. Okay. So at this point, other questions, comments? Commissioner Benega.
I guess my only concern would be, is there any issues with the city following the same time frame, so to speak, and making an approval or denying it?
Well, Mr. Chair, it would be with the joint planning. So yes, we'd have some contingencies. The city would definitely have its input on this, but the meetings and the schedule, we would follow the joint planning and then the joint commission, city council for any appeal in March. So I think we know all the dates. I think we could lay out this calendar. I mean, if it makes it cleanest that anything with a conditional use permit would be resolved by the end of March, do we just defer this license to the first meeting in April? If that follows Mr. Bogue's tolling provision, is that, can we hold the license out while we clarify all the conditional use permit aspect?
Please.
Mr. Chair, I appreciate the question. Eric Bogue again, State's Attorney's Office. I think our ordinance would only toll the 60-day, our requirement to act on the license, only so long as there's an application for a conditional use permit or an appeal on that conditional use permit. So that April date would presume an appeal where we don't at this time know there actually is one. I think it'd be more appropriate to continue this to the first meeting in March, which would follow the Planning Commission, Joint Planning Commission's action, at which time we'll know whether it's been granted or an appeal is in place at that point.
Okay. Mr. Chair, yeah, I follow that logic because, yeah, if there's an appeal, we could defer it to the next month thereafter. So, yeah, take it one step at a time.
So our action would be to defer for a week, then again to defer, giving him time to submit an application for the CUP.
Sorry.
So I don't want to throw a wrench in this, but I've been looking at the calendar, and so that meeting in February, the Planning Commission meeting is the 26th of February, and then according to our ordinance, you have 1 week to appeal that decision. So that would make it, the appeal date would be the 4th of March. So I would not know until really the night before your meeting on the 5th of March whether there was an appeal. Now, sometimes those appeals come in right away, and sometimes they come in at, 3:30 on the last day, which is Monday. So
And if
So-
there is an appeal, it would go to the joint meeting, which is in late March.
That's correct. But I just am letting you know that I won't be able to have a memo or anything for your meeting on the 5th because I won't know until Monday. The last day to appeal would be March 4th. And your meeting, the first meeting in March for you is March 5th. So I'm just putting that out there that, you know, I may not know if there's an appeal of that February 26th meeting.
Understood. Thank you, Scott.
May I?
Please.
One thing from Shangri-La's perspective that just to make sure that all the commission understands, the conditional use permit that we're speaking about here, he obviously talked about the time, but we actually went through the steps during the first lottery process to get our conditional use permit, even though we weren't the initial winner of that lottery. We were just the backup applicant. So we did that proactively. And I just wanted to bring that to your attention to hopefully understand that from our perspective, we're going to be as proactive about this as possible. And I hope that that proves it somewhat, that we went through that process, even though we were only the backup applicant. We're more than willing to go through this process as quick as possible. I think to Commissioner Kipley's question, the chicken and the egg, that may have been brought up then. If it wasn't internal at our company, it may have been at the meeting, because we didn't know if we needed to apply for a conditional use permit since we were only the backup applicant, but we did so in that 60-day time frame just to be sure we did our part. But I don't know, you know, which would come first. Obviously, that involved your attorneys and ours, but we just want to be a good steward, and we don't want to make this commitment. I mean, it's one thing about the application fee in our situation, but it's a whole nother thing that we watched that application for a year and a half sit there idle. Very frustrating for our organization. We don't want to put the county in the same situation again.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Bender.
Well, Mr. Cameron, to your point, you're here on the very last moment today bringing this up. So that cuts a little bit against your argument.
I would agree, except for we were just notified of this meeting on Friday, and yesterday was a holiday. So we rallied an internal meeting over the weekend to discuss this request, but it was a holiday weekend, so we were unable to make it any sooner. There should be an email if it didn't come through this morning. We agreed to send it yesterday evening to the county's commissioner's office to request this in respect for this meeting itself to see if it could be addressed beforehand, but we were called on Friday, notified that it did make the agenda, and here we are. And it was a holiday yesterday.
But you have had that CUP for 2 years, so you should have known when it was going to expire.
We did, but we also intended to move forward except for our fire, and we didn't know it was going to be on the meeting until Friday.
Commissioner Bender.
I have one question for Kim. Were there any other applicants for this license?
No, we only received one application this period
Okay. So from my perspective,
for the one license.
I'm more willing to do a deferral under the circumstances, given there was no other applicant. If there had been another applicant, I think I'd feel differently about this deferral today, but I'd be willing to make a motion to defer, and I think I'll go ahead and make a motion to defer to the first meeting in March, and we'll just have to make a decision that day, even though Scott won't have an opportunity to have fully briefed us until that morning. But that would be my motion.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Other conversation? All right. I'm going to ask for a roll call vote.
Bender,
Aye.
Benega,
Aye.
Kipley,
Aye.
Bleinberg. Aye. Karski.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, commissioners. Apologize for the confusion here and circumstances, but thank you so much for your understanding.
All right. Going to consider a motion to authorize the Human Services to increase the maximum rent and utility guidelines. Good morning, Lori.
Good morning, Lori Montes, Human Services, here this morning to ask you about a motion to increase our rent amount. First off, we have two kind of areas. One is rent and one is utilities. The rent was last increased, the rent maximum allowance in 2018. And so I provided some numbers to show at that time we had increased amount allowed for 2, 3, and 4 bedroom units by $200 to try and keep up a little bit with increase in rent amounts. Since that time, 2018, we know rents have obviously increased substantially, And so we are finding it difficult to meet the needs of some of our requesters as far as helping them to maintain or obtain housing. And so looking to request an increase based on a lot of research that was done, looking at fair market rents, really trying to come up with what made the most sense. Obviously, with the amount that rents currently are, we're still going to be substantially behind the total amount of market rent for a lot of places. But I feel like this increase will put us a little bit closer. Knowing that one of the things that we do with rent assistance is to leverage both the applicant's ability to pay. And so, in order for them to have a unit that they're renting, they have to have some kind of income, right? And so we look at that and have them, maybe pay the deposit, and we help with the initial rent or something like that. And we also a lot of times already have to utilize all of the other helping agencies in town that help with whatever that rental amount or utility as well might be. So what we came up with for a requested increase is increasing the amount for all of the unit sizes. So going for an efficiency from $350 to $500, for a one-bedroom from $500 to $700, for a two-bedroom from $700 to $900, a three-bedroom from $800 to $1,000, and a four-bedroom from $900 to $1,200. Again, this is close to fair market rent, but what we see in Sioux Falls and other parts probably of Minnehaha County too, some of the smaller towns now as well, new facilities and rents have increased a huge amount. So probably the question that goes along with that is, what is that going to cost us, right? And so we looked at the increase that we did in 2018 and the impact that had on that budget line item of rent. And at that time, the increase was $132,500. So based on our best guess in how many people would apply for this assistance and receive that increased amount, knowing that not everybody gets the maximum amount. Again, we leverage and see what it is they actually need. We don't want to give them a loan for more than they would need, right? And so our best guess would be it might increase our funding need to $209,000, kind of in a worst case scenario based on how many people we had request in 2022. Any questions on that before I move on to utility?
Commissioner Bender.
I just have a question. So that wasn't included in the budget for 2024. So if we do this and you have that increase in funding of that amount, will that require you to come in for a budget supplement?
Probably not. I guess we don't know that until we see how many applicants we get. But we don't really anticipate needing to request additional funds at this time. Right now, there's still South Dakota Cares in place, which is helping a lot of people. So I'm anticipating our numbers will be still a little bit lower for this year and potentially next year as well. So we shouldn't need an increase in budget.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
On the rental assistance, and this is a conversation that we had probably 6 weeks ago already, talking about this, you and I, but what do other counties do that, Pennington County, for example, do they provide rental assistance?
They do. There are a few, mostly the larger counties, population-based counties, do provide rental assistance at some level. Everybody does it a little bit differently based on their budgets.
I think we're probably more generous than most other counties, so
I think that's probably true, and we probably have a larger budget than most of the other counties as well.
What is our total budget for rental assistance?
For 2024's budget, we asked for $950,000.
950, thank you. Okay. Any other questions? Commissioner Bleinberg.
Thank you. Lori, I was just wondering, how often can people apply for the rental assistance?
We don't actually have a limit kind of in guidelines, just kind of unspoken. It's really meant to be a one-time emergency assistance kind of thing. So maybe somebody who was out sick and missed work or was hospitalized or some kind of unexpected event. And so while we try and do only one time, sometimes people's situations are certainly more complicated than that. And so we do, assist more than once if need be. But we certainly aren't ongoing. Yeah.
Commissioner Bender?
To follow up on that, since you mentioned South Dakota Cares, could you just briefly give a high-level comparison between what we do at the county and what South Dakota Cares provided or provides?
Sure. So South Dakota Cares funds are still available until September of 2025. They assist with things like rent. They can do deposits. They do utilities. They do cable. I mean, they do all kinds of different fees. Their guideline limit for income amounts for people is much higher. They go by 80% of AMI, which is area median income. The county goes by 100% of federal poverty level, which is people that are making substantially less. I can't think of that number off the top of my head, but I think it's about $1,200 a month are the population that we're serving. So really it's a whole different population in some respects. Did that answer your question?
And South Dakota Cares provided assistance for a much longer period of time as well, correct?
Yes, they can provide for up to 18 months of assistance with rent and utilities. Each can be 18 months.
Thank you.
And one last thing, and I'm making a statement, so correct me if I'm wrong. This rental assistant and utilities assistance doesn't come without strings attached because there is a personal lien for help received, correct?
Correct. So when we're using county funds, pretty much all of county human services assistance is lienable, right? We have a couple things that are not, but by far, things like rent, utilities, medications, funeral expenses, all of those things are lienable. So a lien is placed against the persons and their property.
Okay. Thank you, Lori. Moving on to the utilities.
Okay, so kind of the same thing with utilities. We increased it last in 2009, so maximum assistance allowed at that time went from $400 to $420 per year. That's allowed per year. And so, again, utility costs have increased. We're seeing people with large utility debt. And in order to prevent disconnection, we've had to sometimes go above that. And when I say that, we don't use county funds for that, but we've used, for the last 2 years, we've used South Dakota Cares funds, which does not have a limit like county does. And so we've seen just crazy high utility bills for people sometimes that fortunately South Dakota Cares has been able to assist. But looking forward, knowing that we'll go back to using county funds here, once some of those federal funds run out, we're looking to increase it from $420 per year to $500 per year. Again, cost for that, best estimate would be that it would impact the budget to the degree of $18,160. Again, that's a worst case scenario. Not everybody needs that maximum amount. Sometimes when people come in with disconnects, they owe $50, and just don't have access to that. So that can really vary. I guess any questions on that?
I just want to confirm you're raising it to $600?
$500.
To $500, because the memo says $600.
Okay, sorry about that. It should be $500. Oh,
Okay,
yes.
I just
see
wanted
it.
to make sure
Yep,
that we're
nope,
clear.
it should be
Thank you.
$500.
Other questions? Commissioner Benega.
Lori, were any of these funds available when we first talked about this through the ARPA funding potential?
Yes, we've been using ARPA funding
So
for
if
these.
we'd have used those numbers back 2 years ago when we started talking about ARPA, would we have saved $246,000 for both of these programs?
we have used ARPA for that, and so have saved.
Okay.
Yeah, for the last, I guess it's been 2 years now that we've used ARPA for some of our budget items, including rent and utility.
Thank you. Lori, so I understand, rent is at 100% of the federal poverty level, but for utilities, we're gonna increase it from 100 to 130% to be eligible? Is that,
That maximum amount, yeah, I guess I don't know the percentage, but that sounds about right. Yeah,
I see the 130%.
right.
Mr. Chair, I think to clarify, I thought the proposal was to increase the income guidelines for both rent and utilities.
Oh, I'm sorry,
was the
that's the
distinction.
old memo. We're not looking to increase the federal poverty income guidelines. I apologize.
So all that's at issue is the kind of basically the inflationary adjustment of raising the amount of the proposed maximum assistance for both rent and utilities.
Correct.
No proposed change from
For
your
income
department
guidelines.
for income
Right.
guidelines.
We had considered that initially and then decided that maybe that wasn't the best route to go
So
at
no
this time.
increase to the federal poverty level?
No, we
guideline.
would remain at 100% federal
Increase
poverty level.
To the assistance.
Yep.
Commissioner Bender.
So Lori, now I'm concerned because we found a couple of things that are incorrect in this memo. from
Yes, I
what
see
you're
that's the old memo. I apologize for attaching that.
So are there other things that are changed? I'm wondering if we should defer this to our next meeting so that you can get us the new memo so we know exactly what it is we're
Sure, I can
approving.
sure do that if you'd like. Yep, it's really just the rent and utility, so not the income guidelines as stated on there.
But you also had in here
But I have
that
the
it was,
600.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd feel more comfortable with that personally.
Before a motion's made, you had mentioned there was a discussion to increase the federal poverty level guideline, but you decided against that. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, that was a hard one too to try and figure out. And so I did some polling of the other counties, and they continue to use 100% of federal poverty level. And so for us to make that change was maybe a bit of a big step. It certainly doesn't solve the issue. If you see kind of what I had in that old memo, that other benefits like food stamps and Medicaid and all of those use like 130, 138% of federal poverty level. So it's still super low for that, but it didn't seem like when we kind of looked through numbers and how that would affect our applicants, that it would make a substantial difference in the number of people that we would be able to assist by increasing that income guideline.
Is it fair to say that the intent of these two programs is to keep people from becoming homeless?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Even a utility, if you get your utility disconnected, that can result in an eviction, and then that utility bill doesn't get paid, it follows you to your next residence. So trying to prevent homelessness and evictions to the greatest extent that we can in our county.
Okay. If there's no more questions, I'll look for a motion from the commission.
I'd make a motion to defer this to our next meeting.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We will talk about it again next week.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next week. All right, number 8, authorize the chair to sign a joint powers agreement between the South Dakota Attorney General's Office and the Minnehaha County Sheriff for Drug Enforcement, Captain Phillips. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Captain Josh Phillips here with Minnehaha County Sheriff's Office. This is an agreement that I think was last signed in 2017 between the Attorney General's Office and the Sheriff's Office. This agreement is basically the Minnehaha County Sheriff's Office deputies or detectives that are assigned to the Sioux Falls Area Drug Task Force have limited investigative powers within our jurisdiction. This agreement would allow us to continue those investigations outside of the county. We would be assigned special agents from the Attorney General's Office to allow our investigators to work outside the county on bigger drug cases, and then hopefully lead those investigations, and then we'd turn those over to the state and they would help prosecute those So this is, again, an agreement that has been in place, I think, last signed in 2017. Nothing has changed since that last agreement in 17.
All right. Questions for the captain? Public comment? Commission action?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Benega,
Aye.
Blyenberg,
Aye.
Kipley,
Aye.
Bender,
Aye.
Karski.
Aye, motion carries unanimously. Authorize the Highway Department to purchase a Komatsu D39 dozer using the Sourcewell contract. Bulldozers, my favorite subject.
Yes, sir. Steve Groen, Highway Superintendent. I will be requesting an amendment on this agenda item. Part of our approved 2024 capital asset purchase plan allowed the Highway Department to purchase a new bulldozer. When we submitted this, we had an extended warranty included. Had a conversation with Commissioner Karski yesterday, which prompted me to have a conversation with Fred Konechki, our fleet supervisor, and Jacob Mars, our assistant superintendent. Jacob talked to a couple contractors. I talked to a couple contractors that run Komatsu equipment. They have a really strong history of being very reliable, and we're comfortable not including the extended warranty on this purchase if the commission agrees. We have a new price from DMI where without the warranty it would be $165,756. So Highway Department's requesting this action be amended to withdraw the extended warranty.
All right, questions for Steve? Public comment on this item? All right, commission discussion, action?
Aren't we
Well,
gonna
since-
need the warranty, just in case you start driving this?
I've declined the offer.
Okay.
Commissioner Bender, there is a 1-year factory warranty, so we'll just make sure he does it the first year.
Okay. So,
Since
you know,
this is Commissioner
saw-
Karski's favorite, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no,
Sorry.
I saw the warranty on there. I just was wondering if that was something that we routinely did or not. And I don't think we have a policy on extended warranties. And I talked to the city's Public Works Department, and they don't, from what my understanding, they don't do a warranty. They do a service contract instead. So it's amazing how many different ways there are to skin a cat. So appreciate you looking into it, Steve.
Mr. Chair, if this was a more complicated piece of equipment like an asphalt paver, we would take a harder look at an extended warranty.
Well, since this is Commissioner Karski's favorite project, but he can't make a motion, I'll make a motion in his honor.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion for the contract for $165,765.
$756.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We have a new bulldozer on the way. All right. Authorize the chair to sign the South Dakota Department of Transportation Utility and Right-of-Way certificates for project MC 2310, structure 50, 197, 100, rehabilitation.
Once again, Steve Groen, Highway Superintendent. This is one of the routine items related to a bridge improvement grant award. We received 80% funding for this deck rehabilitation project, and this is our standard commission item prior to getting authorization to bid the project. It just says that Minnehaha County takes responsibility for any necessary right-of-way or easements for these projects, and that the DOT will not be responsible for any utility relocation costs.
All right. Questions for Steve? Public comment? Commission discussion or action?
Make
Move
a
for-
motion to approve.
Motion by
Second.
Blyenberg, second by Benninga. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Authorize chair to sign the agreement for final design for project MC 22-03, structure 50, 273090, bridge replacement, going from a rehab to a replacement.
So once again, Steve Groen, Highway Superintendent. This is a project that we've done preliminary engineering on. This contract would bring this project to final design so that we can submitted a year from now for South Dakota Bridge Improvement Grant funding. We feel based on the fact that the structure is posted currently and the scoring that we'd be very competitive doing a big grant application next year on this project. So we're seeking your approval to enter a contract with Civil Design Inc. to get it to that point.
All right. Questions for Steve? Public comment? Commission discussion and/or action?
I'll move approval.
Motion by Kipley,
Second.
second by Bender. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, so we've done a rehab, we've done a second replacement, okay. Authorize the chair to sign the agreement for construction administration for project MC 2207, structure 50-337-130, bridge replacement.
Once again, Steve Groen, Highway Superintendent. This project was awarded by the commission back on December 19th. Alteg engineers had done the engineering and design on this project. This is a contract with Alteg Engineer to provide contract administration on this project. That is a bridge investment grant funded at 60%.
Questions for Steve? Public comment? Commission action or discussion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Bender,
Second.
second by Kipley. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right. Moving on then to consider a petition for compromise of lien, DPNO 45633. Good morning, Melinda.
Good morning, Commissioners. The action requested today is to consider a motion to compromise lien DPNO 45633 in full with no payment in the amount of $1,107.20. The petitioner's original lien balance was $1,793.20. Her initial request was to speak with the commissioners to have the lien eliminated. She stated that she didn't have any funds to pay the lien and that she was not aware she had to repay any of the fees recorded between 2001 and 2022. The lien represents rental assistance and legal counsel fees. The lien included $686 balance owed to Lincoln County that was resolved prior to applying with Minnehaha County. Lincoln County Commission action on December 26, 2023 was to adjust account 0106258 by resolution 2312-40 to remove a double entry of $408.50. The resolution for the remaining $277.50 balance was not addressed by the board because the petitioner was not present at the meeting. The amount was paid to Lincoln County on the same day by the petitioner. The petitioner is now requesting a release of Minnehaha County Aid lien DPNO 45633 in full with no payment so that she can purchase a home for her daughter and her grandchildren. There is no real estate transaction at this time. The financial information submitted with the application is a 2022 W-2 from Employer 1 showing $9,855.48 in wages. A September 2023 pay stub from Employer 2 showing a net pay of $2,790.64 for the month, with a year-to-date total of $24,315.19, and a December 2023 statement from Employer 3 for an adjustment pay of $1,250. No income tax record was provided. She wasn't certain her online submission had gone through. The application lists assets totaling $200 and liabilities totaling $60,100. She is here to address the board today.
All right, thank you, Melinda. We'll begin with questions for Melinda. Any commissioner questions for Melinda? All right, so now is the opportunity for the lienee to address the commission. You don't have to come to the podium. You don't have to give your name. But if you'd like to add any additional comments to what we've already learned through this process, now's your opportunity.
Well, as you can see, I did not make a lot of money credit went down, and it wasn't at 620 to get any assistance for first-time home buyers, so that is out of the question. That someday I do want to purchase a home. It's very expensive, and I just don't have the money, and this held me back. So this was part of the contingency to continue on to buy a house. And yeah, it is to keep my daughter and my grandchildren here, and so it's been really stressful. I had to pay Lincoln County, I had to pay AAA, I had to pay AMI, and I don't have any more left, so I just don't make a whole lot. It's been very, very stressful. So I live with my mom right now, and I just want to move out. But this is all from 2001 and 2004, so that 2022 is interesting where that came from. I guess because Lincoln County, I had to go to court for something. I had it was a weird situation, but I had a court-appointed attorney that they overcharged me for there. So that's the 2022. Otherwise, I asked for assistance in 2001 before my daughter was even born, and in 2004 I don't remember. So I don't know. Forgive it, but that's where I'm at.
Thank you. Commissioners. Commissioner Bender?
Well, I would say that I empathize with the difficult situation, but at the same time, we are here in charge of not our own money, but other people's money, all the taxpayers' money. And as we talked about earlier, when we were talking about rental assistance, that all of that is taxpayer money that was provided. There isn't any record that you have made any payments back to the county. We don't try to collect. We don't send collectors out after you. This money doesn't accrue an interest. And so at this time, without any payment at all, I wouldn't be able to support forgiveness of this loan. But, you know, if at some point you are able to come in and offer up a payment, typically we'll entertain very favorably a request with even 50% payment. And so that's where I would be on this.
Yeah, I'll chime in here. Yeah, this doesn't go on a credit report, so if you, I mean, my 7 years now of doing these types of adjustments, people get to the finish line to close on a home and, oh, you have a lien on you. You can't close until you get this lien satisfied. So, I mean, if a lender is telling you you have to satisfy this lien before you can apply for, go through the application process for a home loan, I don't think that's correct. Now, you know, we're just looking for, in my perspective, even if it's $25 a month, and it doesn't have to be every month, but I've got $25 I can apply to this lien. Just showing some good faith back to the taxpayers of Minnehaha County that, hey, I'm willing to take care of some of this. I got help when I needed it. I want to become a homeowner to take care of my. And a lot of people are in that situation. I understand that. So right now, this lien is not impacting you adversely in any way that I can see, because it is not part of any sort of credit report or that type of thing. So if you're in the next year, you're able to make a few small payments, show some good faith, and you are looking for a home loan, and you come to us and say, okay, I was here before, I have a home, I can't buy this home unless you give me some forgiveness here.
I can't buy a home. I've already, the home that I lost out on, I already paid $500 for the inspection, and I paid $500 for earnest money that I'll never get back. So there's that $1,000. I just don't have it. I'm gonna have to do the same thing over, and I just don't have it. I don't make a lot of money, you can tell.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, $2,000 a month, like, I don't know how you can live on that.
You brought this up, so the lender wouldn't proceed with the loan because of this lien?
Yes. You have to pay the liens until
Yes, and that's at the point, that stage where most people are coming to us and saying, my lender said I need to do this. I want to close next week. I mean, it's right down to the wire a lot of times.
Yeah, I'm 41, I just wanna get somewhere, and this is over 20 years old, so I didn't expect it, and that's why, so. And I am hoping that my credit score goes up, it's only gotta go up 20 points. So, I'm just hoping that it goes up, by next month, and maybe I can buy a house, but I'm not sure. I've never done it before. It's always running into something.
It's a daunting process, I understand, and as Commissioner Bender said, we empathize with where you're at, and you will, I think, at some point, see this commission do what we can to make it better for you, but at this point, I don't see where any action that we take would benefit you. I could be wrong, and I'm gonna leave it up to the rest of the commission to make that call.
Mr. Chair, I'll just chime in that I think Commissioner Bender's logic is sound. Usually just the past precedent for how we've processed these is usually that we have to meet you halfway on some aspect of it. So I know you were able to pay off some of the balance, or the remaining balance with Lincoln County, and so I guess Minnehaha County would ask to just see that good faith. We're not necessarily saying, I think Melinda could tell you lots of stories of people we haven't had 100% payment. We meet somebody where they are. So just this initial offer of no payment, just it doesn't get much traction. I think you're seeing.
If you can help a single mom out, that would be awesome. If you can't, I understand. You got bulldozers and everything else to pay for. So, that's $173,000, and I don't know why this 1,000 is that big of a deal, but if it is, I don't understand, and I hope that if somebody can, because it's $1,000. I wish I could do it as a single person, but you guys are so quick. It's so easy to sign off on things like that. Not this, so I don't know why. You can even ask to look at different prices of different bulldozers, maybe save a little there. You just sign off so fast. So, it's interesting. That $100,000, thing that you got going for Shangri-La, I don't know where that money goes, but, maybe you can help something out like this, but maybe it just goes to your salaries. I don't know. But it's $1,000. I just don't understand how it's so quick.
Thank you.
You can sign off so quick, so fast, no questions. But then you have all my income up on the screen, you give me so much help, and it's $1,000, and obviously I don't have a lot of money, if you see it on the screen, so.
Ma'am, we understand your situation. We truly do. And you're not the first one that's come before us, and we've been very empathetic and helpful when we could be. At this point, I don't see where this would help you. So I'm going to ask you to stop now, okay? We've all had our chance to speak. I'm going to turn it over to the commission for action.
I would make a motion to deny the petition.
Second.
A motion and a second. I need a roll call vote, please.
Bender,
Aye.
Kipley,
Aye.
Bleinberg,
Aye.
Benega,
Aye.
Karski.
Aye. Motion carries. You can always come back.
Can I ask one question, please?
Sleep at night, knowing that you signed off on $165,000.
Yes, ma'am.
You can't sign off on $1,000. I hope you can sleep at night, because you're not helping anybody at all. Bulldozer.
Okay. Commissioner Benega?
When people get services from the public defender or the state's attorney, do they sign anything that says that that's what I thought?
Yes, both human services applications and public advocate, public defender, their applications include a sentence toward the bottom where it clearly specifies that the amount for the fee will be liened against their property, and there is typically a payment plan discussed within that application process.
My question, and I think you're telling me exactly what I thought it was, but do they get the paperwork or see that they did sign, that they do understand that this is a lien?
It is on their application.
No. Thank you.
All righty.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melinda. Tyler, legislative update.
Good morning, Tyler Clack, Commission Office. So there's not much to update at this point as far as bills progressing. A few notable items. One that got some publicity early before session started was what ended up being House Bill 1040, which was shared between Representative Ladner and Senator Colbeck, which would have basically reset how assessments were handled back to the 2020 value. That bill was actually withdrawn before it was introduced, and then withdrawn essentially. Other than that, most of these are still either waiting for their first hearing. Some have progressed through their committee and their chamber. For example, I can't remember the number of it, but it was to increase the amount that a diversion program can pay from $250 to $750. That actually passed both the committee and the Senate, so it'll be heading to the House side soon.
Senate Bill 47.
Thank you. I tried to indicate any bill related to the summer study with a little blue star. There's some fun. And other than that, there's not much to update you at this point, but that'll get a little more complicated as we progress.
That Ladner bill, any chance of that coming back? Any idea? I know you're
I don't
guessing.
know for certain, but I would put my money yes, but who knows?
Okay. Yes, okay. It's not what I wanted. Commissioner Bender.
I would say that it was gratifying to see Senate Bill 47 progress through committee and through the Senate. That would be a big win for the juveniles in Minnehaha County and across the state. It basically triples the amount that the state pays for successful diversions that keep kids out of JDC and put them on the right track back to being productive citizens. And so I'll be watching that with interest. I really hope that that gets the support on the House side as well.
All right. Thank you, Tyler. It's going to be hopefully an easy session. We can believe it. All right, commission liaison reports. Oh, wait, sorry. Opportunity for public comment. Anybody here from the public that would like to address the commission? You have 5 minutes, total of 30 minutes. I don't think we're going to push that one today. No public comment. Moving on to commission liaison reports. Commissioner Bender.
I just would say that the Accessible Housing Advisory Board met last week, and Carrie Benz from Minnehaha County gave an update on housing situations. It's still challenging to find housing for families here in Minnehaha County, and just in this weather. She did report that there has been one death in Minnehaha County, and I didn't get an update over the weekend. But, it is, these are real problems that we are talking about here, and there are people at risk in our community, and sometimes it is easy to lose sight of that, so.
All right. Commissioner Bennigan.
I'm the liaison with the Highway Department, and I've been getting communications for the last few days. I'm just amazed at how much time and effort that the Highway Department has had to put in to try to keep up with one of the most difficult snowstorms, winds, temperature problem that we've dealt with for quite a while. It's not a good start to 2024.
And I appreciate the hard work.
Yes.
All right. Still getting started with the year, so we'll move on to non-action commission discussion. All right. Nothing there, so we're going to have an executive session immediately following the commission meeting for the purposes of South Dakota Codified Law 125-2, 1, 3, and 4, and 6. And we're going to have our executive session in this room, so we're going to need probably about 10 minutes to shut down the electronics and clear the room, et cetera. So
Do you want a motion?
I will look for a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second?
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We will begin executive session at 10:10.